Hello and welcome back. Today we will be continuing our Victoria 3 tutorial series, and we are going to be talking about the top 5 countries that have the best companies associated with either their territory, their journal entries, or their culture. We already had a tutorial video discussing how we evaluate companies that will be linked down in the description below, but this episode we will be talking about the top 5. The structure of this is going to be, we're going to talk about the 5th through 2nd, then we are going to talk about honorable mentions, one of the honorable mentions being a country that has a company that will almost certainly get nerfed and is super overtuned right now, so we considered it ineligible, and then we will begin discussing the number 1. Without further ado, let's jump in. So first up, in 5th place we have Russia, which to my knowledge has the most companies available to it as a result of its territories at the start of the game, the most unique companies. In particular, one of these companies is culture locked, which means that Russia will have a monopoly on the vodka monopoly. They are the only ones who can found it. It will be locked behind Russian culture. It doesn't say that here, but if you are playing with a different country and you annex all of Russia, you won't be able to found it. And so this one is not particularly good, but we will be overvaluing companies that are culture locked for the purposes of, this top 5. We are going to focus on companies that are particularly good, and we're going to skim over ones that aren't very good, so we will skim over Ursus, and instead look at this Lil Pop company. We're not going to try and pronounce the rest. Now, Russia has another company that's very strong that's going to have iron and steel, so when evaluating this company, it might not end up fitting your final build if you're playing as Russia, but it is one of the best tool companies in the game, and if you're playing as a different country that doesn't have access to, Russia's better company that's going to be located in Luhansk, but you end up getting Polish land, this is going to be tied to Mazovia in Greater Poland, and is going to give you access to, having tools and iron mine together is going to be really spicy. Generally speaking, tools is a pretty good company because you will really benefit a lot from the construction. I think tools industry might be the thing that has the most construction that you spend in an entire game on average, and so the 35% or whatever percent loud car outside construction you're getting in terms of the construction bonus, it's going to be pretty high on tooling workshops. And if you don't have, a steel and iron company, then this company is very strong. I think it's, top 4-ish tool company. It's not the best company for Russia, but it is going to, give you quite a lot of construction if you don't have, steel and iron. If you already have steel and iron, you'll just be happy that you have a little bit of extra throughput. If you have 2 overlapping companies, so if you have 2 iron mine companies, instead of getting, like 40% throughput, the way it works is you get 30, and you get a decreasing amount more and more as you stack more of the companies, but you will still get an increase. You will still get more, but it is decreasing marginal return. So you don't get the full return each time, but that is Lil Pop. We're skipping over the vodka monopoly, not very good. As we mentioned in our video when we talked about companies that are military shipyards and artillery foundries, you're generally not going to get a lot of construction out of these, and so they're not going to be very good, and so you kind of think of it, hey, this is a motor industry company, but 5% infrastructure and, 10% railway building throughput, as far as, having really terrible industries tied to it goes, these are some pretty good prosperity bonuses. Still not going to be worth using, but I mean, maybe in some weird case you would want to use this, but I think it's not going to be worth using. We have Brand Nobel, which, while not especially good, is strictly better than a generic oil because it has an additional 5% railway building throughput, which is going to be nice. These industries, not very good, and these bonuses, not very good, so skipping through that. This company, not especially good. 10% prestige is maybe okay if you're doing like a world conquest type thing, where you need to pump up your prestige for some reason, but overall not going to be very good. And this is the pride and joy of Russia right here. New Russia Company Limited. There are, I believe, 4, if I'm not mistaken. There are 4 companies that give steel, coal, and iron all together. I think that these are some of the strongest companies in the game, and of these 4, New Russia Company Limited is the best one. It is going to give you, as its prosperity bonus, 10% railway building throughput. As we discussed in the previous video, railway building throughput is extremely strong because railways normally don't have much throughput, and throughput is more valuable the less of it you already have. If you had, for example, already plus 100% throughput, this would represent just a 5% increase over what you had before, but with 0% throughput, it represents a full 10% increase, and also the +2 Industrialist approval bonus is going to make it easier to, throughout more phases of the game, especially when you are passing stuff that trade unionists like. It's going to allow you to maintain the capitalist investment pool free money modifier contribution efficiency, which is going to be quite large. And by laws that they want to pass, I mean like going compulsory primary school. It's going to piss off the capitalists, but having just that little extra juice of approval is it can make the difference sometimes between a bonus and a not bonus, and so it's not inconsequential. You're mainly doing it for the construction and throughput on these three industries, but railway building throughput very strong, and the industrialist one is also quite solid. In fourth place, we have Peru Bolivia, which has a little bit of a cheat here in that we are including all the Peruvian territories, even though Bolivia doesn't start with them. The pride and joy of Peru Bolivia is the Campaña de Salitres y Ferrocarril de Antofagasta. Hopefully I pronounced that correct, but this is one of the premier companies. Every single one of the companies that has a railway plus a mine is going to be quite strong, because the throughput and construction is very, very useful on railways, because they occupy a large percentage of your construction queue and they have no base throughput, and so they will benefit quite a lot from these bonuses. But on top of this, you know, getting throughput on sulfur, when you have a lot of sulfur in this region, is going to be quite nice, and it's going to pair nicely with your other companies coming in, taking a look. Clabin, Amos, and CIA. This is going to be a decent company, a decent wood company, particularly before you have rubber. I think the generic wood company that has rubber might be a little bit better overall, but before you have rubber, you can slot this company in and it will be better, because you'll be getting throughput and construction on paper. Notably, a big input for paper is going to be, you know, logging camps, or it's going to be wood and sulfur, and so you might even be able to get some sort of thing going where you're exporting paper. I don't think that this is necessarily going to be the case unless they give some sort of trade buff, but if they give a trade buff for this sort of thing, having this loop on just two companies might be very, very nice, and also getting maximum infrastructure from population is going to be good. You know, very often you'll cap out, and so this represents just a solid increase in infrastructure, and the tooling workshops building throughput is going to be quite nice as well, effectively giving you, you know, half a company's worth of throughput on tooling, which is one of the better things to get tooling on. Actually, let's come back to this company and talk about it a little bit more, because we didn't even talk about the prosperity bonuses, which are quite strong. The Industrialist approval is going to be the same thing as the New Russia Company Limited. It's going to allow you to maintain bonuses, which is going to be useful, but infrastructure is multiplicatively useful with other bonuses to railways, because, you know, the railways get infrastructure, so once we get the throughput, this infrastructure, this plus 20, with 20% throughput, right, is going to get modified up to 24, shout out to math, and then it will be 5% extra on top of that. We're not going to do that math, but it's going to be multiplicatively effective, and infrastructure bonuses are really, really good, because railways are not that profitable by themselves. You're generally building them for, you know, throughput, and so because they're not going to be that profitable by themselves, getting the opportunity to just get the infrastructure without them, and then maybe try and get some transportation through your urban centers, or lean on those a little bit more, or maybe not even use the transport PMs and not have to build railroads. This is going to be pretty nice, and so we do really like this company bonus, although the railway companies are a little bit harder to get the company bonus on. It requires quite a bit of micromanagement. This lead company is probably not as good as generic lead and iron, so we're not going to really talk about it any more than that. But now we have to scroll down and kind of look at the Peruvian companies under potential companies. The Peruvian company that we are going to kind of take a look at here, if I'm not mistaken, this is a Brazilian company. Yeah, it is. But this Empresas Electricistas Associadas. Hopefully I pronounced that relatively correct. But this is going to give, you know, power plant. Now, currently, power plants, they do a little bit of wonky stuff. They overbuild in terms of the auto queue. We don't like that. And so it's kind of hard to evaluate just how much construction goes into them. But I think it's a fairly substantive amount of, you know, once you get going on this, you will be spending a decent chunk of your, you know, construction queue on power plants, especially because you start with 0 and then you ratchet them up quite quickly. And so the construction construction and the throughput on power plants will be really nice. Also, power plants, often you're spreading them out. You're not building them for economies of scale throughput. And because they are going to be generally lower level, this throughput is going to be more valuable because they will have less generic available throughput on them kind of natively as a result of you not wanting to build them tall because you have to supply all of it locally. And so very often you will have level 1, 2, 3, 5 power plants, and these will benefit quite a lot from the throughput. On top of that, we have what the real reason you slot this company in, and I do think this company is quite strong, which is the 5% state construction efficiency. The infrastructure per 100k population, really not what we're kind of writing home about here. This 5% state construction efficiency bonus is extraordinarily strong. It's the reason why generic steel is actually pretty solid, because while you're, you know, evaluating one company or one industry, giving 35% construction on that, it's so much more valuable to have 5% on everything. It's not going to allow you to specialize, but currently specialization is not very strong because market access price impact negatively impacts, you know, your ability to trade, because you can only affect your own market price and other countries' market price. Some of the price is informed by local prices, and so it's really hard for you to just say, oh, I'm going to slot in 3 tool companies and then I'm going to specialize in tools and export them. You really won't get the full benefit. You have to build a balanced economy, and because you have to build a balanced economy, construction, generic construction is going to be more valuable, and it's one of the reasons why this Bolivian steel, which is the generic steel company for everyone, is so good. I think that there's maybe 3 or 4 generic companies that are good. Bolivian Steel, or the steel company, is one of them, and it's one of them on the back of this 5% state construction efficiency. And so, you know, kind of the things to write home about are going to be mainly this railway company and the electrical company, but also noting that in some phases of the game, this wood company can be quite strong. You can also, I mean, maybe the wood company I'm underrating a little bit because the tooling workshop building throughput is quite strong as well. But I think in general, for most, I think more often than not, the generic wood company might be just a tad better if we can find it really quick. The generic wood company, because it's going to give plus infrastructure per 100k population. Notably, this is 1 per 100k, not 0.05, which is what the electrical company gave. Also maximum like flat infrastructure, which is going to be nice because you don't have a lot. It's also going to synergize, you know, with the railroad 5% a little bit, and it's going to give you rubber throughput, which I think now is going to be extraordinarily strong as a result of the tooling workshop change. The tools PM for the one that uses rubber is extraordinarily strong. And so I think for most phases of the game, this is going to be a little bit better, but maybe there's a world in which you are slotting in this company a little bit earlier. In third place, we have the United States of America. Now, this company that's slotted in, not very good, but it is unique to the US, so we're going to get that cramp out of here. We're going to not look at the available companies, because those are both the crampy one, as well as a bunch of generic ones, and we will instead look at the attainable companies for the United States, starting with Standard Oil. Standard Oil, in my mind, might be the best, or it's certainly the best oil company in the game, and it might be the best railway company. I think it's a little bit of a toss-up. I used to be a little bit more bullish on it, you know, during the beta, but it's still going to be very, very nice to get the throughput and the construction speed on the railways, and then the doubled throughput effectively once you have the prosperity bonus and you're the #1 GP, you know, gaining that full 20% throughput. You will have 40% throughput, and this extra throughput will make it easier to maintain the prosperity bonus as well. Maintaining the prosperity bonus on railway companies can be a little bit difficult, but if you have extra throughput, this will decrease the denominator effectively when you are calculating throughput or productivity, because of how productivity is calculated, and so it's going to be easier once you turn this on to maintain the bonus all throughout. And then throughput on oil is pretty strong. A lot of oil rigs don't go up to that high level, so they won't have that much throughput from economies of scale. And then also, it's going to be an industry you run out of, and so having throughput on stuff that you're running out of is also going to be very strong. So Standard Oil, probably the best, railway company, definitely the best oil company. And the next up, we have a company that is tied to the USA, and maybe I'm underrating this. It's perhaps the case that if you're going high infamy, like if you're going to go to 1k infamy, which is not how I like to play, it's possible that the USA is #1 on the back of the United Fruit Company, because 20% plantation throughput, that's all of your plantations, of which rubber is a plantation, right? And rubber is extremely strong, as we mentioned in the Peru Bolivia section. This is an insane bonus. It's going to give you so much throughput, so much more throughput, and often you don't get plantations up to 51, so you're not getting max economies of scale bonus. You're not getting, you know, the bonus from the Industrialists, the trade unionist bonus for 10% manufacturing industries bonus, and so you will generally have less throughput on plantation stuff in the aggregate, and this represents just a pretty nice prosperity bonus. Now, you're going to need to somehow maintain high expensive fruit slash sugar, and or, you know, find a way to make sure you have this prosperity bonus, which maybe is going to be a little bit difficult, but this prosperity bonus is quite strong. Next up, we have probably the most attractive company. It's a little hard to say between Standard Oil and this, but that is the Carnegie Steel Company. This is probably the second best steel, coal, iron company. All of these are extremely strong, and you are getting railway building throughput, we mentioned, also very strong, and shipyards building throughput, not that good. I think it's worse than the Russia one. I think I'd rather have 2 industrialist approval than shipyards building throughput, but hey, this is going to be very strong. It is going to require a somewhat later tech. Ooh, yeah, okay, so open hearth process, which I believe is later than any other company for being able to turn on this company, but it is still going to be an extremely strong company. All right, kind of moving down, General Electric is a decent, you know, one of these power plant companies. It's gotten quite a bit worse after, you know, the creation of that one that's given construction. Motor industries throughput is meh, and you know, innovation is not that great. It kind of like makes it sound like you're getting 5% more tech, but it's not increasing the tech, the cap for direct research, which would be kind of the most useful thing you could do, and you don't really care. You could just build another university. Getting extra throughput in construction on electric industries, maybe it's okay. It's the only power plant plus electric industries, but overall, I don't think General Electric's going to be that good, and I don't think you slot it in. Cramp & Sons is Cramp. Ford Motor Company is going to be not that good a company because you generally don't, I mean, no, it's just not that good a company, so we're just gonna kind of end it at that. The ones to really focus on are the Carnegie Steel, the United Fruit Company, and Standard Oil. It's really this trio, and it's very nice because we're not having any overlap with the USA, specifically with our companies. It's not like we have 2 really good railway companies, and then it's like, oh, well, this feels dumb because we're kind of negating the construction bonus and the throughput bonus. All of these will pair quite nicely together, and then you could look to pick up maybe a tool company somewhere else, and kind of round things out with 4 companies with these 4, or just, you know, use generic steel for the 5% construction. Definitely a reasonable strategy, and so USA has a very nice, smoothly playing sort of company idea, as does every single, you know, country that has iron, coal, and steel combined companies. In second place, we have Japan. Now, Japan, in terms of the power level of the company, is probably not as strong as the USA. However, it does have a very strong company in the South Manchuria Railway Company that is going to be locked behind Japan because, unfortunately, no one else can restore their honor just quite like Japan can and complete the Honorable Restoration Journal entry. So this company will only be available to Japan, and it's probably the best railway company. I was a little bit more bullish on, you know, USA during the beta, but or the USA Standard Oil during the beta, but now I kind of think that this is the best oil company. You are going to have and build a ton of coal mines throughout the course of the game, and this is going to be extremely strong. It just requires, you know, railways, and also, but you do have to take Manchuria, so this is a kind of a different thing. You need to have at least 4 states, currently 0 fulfill this requirement. It has to be in Manchuria and North China, and they have to have a railway. But we are going to get from this, you know, throughput in construction on railways. Great, fantastic. Throughput in construction on coal mines. Coal mines, if I'm not mistaken, you build more coal mines than any other mine, so it's best to have a company bonus on coal mines. It might be iron. It's one of the 2, but I do think it's coal. And so this is going to be very strong railway plus coal. Notably, this pairs really well with having generic iron, which is going to give iron and lead. But, you know, and then between the 3 of these, and then generic steel, you have have like a very, very strong basis when you're on 3 companies. But on top of the railway plus a resource, which is great, you also have glassworks. You end up building a lot of glassworks over the course of the game. They're very, very strong, you know, once after you research steel frame buildings. And so this is going to represent, you know, an enormous uptick in throughput in construction for you, in addition to being railway plus resource. Now, this is completely forgetting about the prosperity bonus. The prosperity bonus is not inconsequential. Wheat farms building throughput's decent. I mean, you're going to be building rice. Rice is OP. But on a per worker basis, wheat farms are going to be way better. And so maybe there's some world where you transition to wheat in a hyper late game environment and the extra throughput is particularly useful. Something like this. I think that overall this is kind of a nothing burger and you'd rather build rice, but maybe you try this out building wheat or something like this. The wheat is going to be more pop efficient, but it's going to be less slot efficient and less construction efficient than the very, very OP rice. And so, okay. And then we have 10% colony growth speed in non-homeland states. This is going to be great. It's the equivalent of 1 level of the institution, if I'm not mistaken, and so very solid. Mitsubishi is another company. You are going to not really probably slot this in because you're almost certainly going to prefer the South Manchuria Railway Company. I suppose Mitsubishi you could, you know, consider slotting in before you have the other one available. Maybe it's better than the coal sulfur generic, but War Machines Industries throughput you're not going to make good use of. Industrialist approval, it's not a very good prosperity bonus, and it's military shipyards, man, we don't care. And I think you would rather have coal plus sulfur instead of coal plus engines, and so don't think we use Mitsubishi. For Mitsui, this is not culture locked. I believe in the beta it was culture locked, and I don't think it's culture locked now. It requires taking Kansai, so Kansai is going to be, shout out to Kansai, where people might be taking it now, because I think this is the best in slot lead company, and this is particularly noteworthy because there's a lot of really good companies that have iron on them. For generic companies, I said for generic companies, iron and lead generic is one of the generic companies that you're going to be using quite frequently. And so when you have, you already have a really good iron company, suddenly you kind of wish you had a good way to get lead. And this, in terms of lead companies, I think is the very best one in the game, because you are going to end up getting a ton of construction out of it by having both fertilizers and textiles, which you will build a lot of. On top of this, also, whenever you kind of have one of these consumer industries and you just happen to get it on a company, which to be fair, you're kind of getting that with the glassworks, you very often will want to build at lower levels for, you know, market access price impact, MAPI reasons, for local price reasons. And if you're building stuff at lower levels and you have a throughput bonus, this is going to be really, really nice. And so it promotes a little bit of a wide gameplay rather than tall, but once you do build tall and you have 51 textile mills, 30 throughput is less important, but getting, you know, quite a decent construction block out of being both textile mill and fertilizer is going to be pretty nice. And then on top of that, we get iron mines building throughput. Now, if you already have an iron mine slotted in an iron company and then you slot in a second, you will only get half the throughput on the company bonus. And so it kind of represents, like, if you already have an iron mine company, it kind of represents getting an additional one in the sense that you're getting that 10% throughput. And so that's pretty nice. Industrial's political strength is going to be nice kind of early on in the game. We don't need to have, we just need to have cotton gin researched, and we just need to build textile mills to level 10, so we might slot this in early. Probably not, probably favoring generic iron and coal over it, or sorry, iron and lead over it, and generic coal sulfur early on, and then kind of moving towards the South Manchuria Railway Company. But I think once you get on 4 or 5 companies, Mitsui is definitely one that you would want to consider using. This way you will, you know, get a lot of extra free construction in the particular of the textile mills. Maybe you look to get a tooling company first, but it's mainly the South Manchuria Railway Company that is locked behind, you know, playing Japan, that is going to kind of cinch it in for Japan, because this company, it's real good. The first honorable mention is the UK. They do notably have a steel, coal, iron company. I think it's probably the worst in the game. It is going to be locked behind Bessemer process, but it is still a steel, coal, iron company, and so this is going to be quite good. It's going to be a nice, comfortable play through for the UK. Next up, we have Greece, in particular focus on Koupas. This makes Greece a place that's worth conquering for a lot of different countries, because in my mind, this is the second best tooling company in the entire game. It's going to do it mainly off the back of the giving this railway building throughput, but also the motor industries is going to be better than generic. Just these two industries together is probably going to be better than generic tools. And then on top of that, we have steel mill building throughput, which if you are using generic steel, this is going to be pretty valuable because having throughput decreases the number of laborers effectively for your output minus your input, what you're getting out of that, which is how productivity for prosperity is calculated. And so if you have this company in, it will make it easier, a little bit easier to keep things going on your generic steel company. Now let's kind of take a quick look. Generic steel again gives the 5% construction, and generic tools here not very good because it's other two industries, arms industries and artillery. You're not going to build a lot of these, and so you're not going to benefit that much from construction and throughput. You would much rather have the engines, which is present on Koopas. Austria definitely also deserves a shout here because it's going to have Mavag, which is basically the same as Koopas minus the steel throughput, but on top of that they also have the Galatian Carpathian Petroleum Company, which I think is probably the second best oil company. Maybe it's not, but we are going to get 5% railway building throughput and tooling workshop building throughput on top of this, which is definitely a decent shout if you're already playing Austria. China has the only other resource plus railway company in the game that was not listed in the top 5, and while this one is probably a little bit better than the Peru Bolivia one, this is the only company that stands out as China. Notably, you can get this from taking Beijing, which makes Beijing the most conquerable state in the game. Very, very strong. Just want to point out it does have the Forbidden City, which is going to give you legitimacy, and so now it has on top of this a very, very strong company that's going to require incorporation and that you build up the coal mines, but this is more than doable in order to kind of secure yourself railway plus coal, which is going to be really strong. Spain almost made the top 5. Really had a hard time deciding which one of these was better between Spain and Russia, and I might have made the incorrect choice, but they do have the final iron, coal, steel company, but if my recollection is correct, this one does not require any technology, and so it can be slotted in faster than the other ones, which is quite nice, but we're not getting the railway throughput like we are in the USA and the Russia one, and so it's not quite as good, but this is still going to be a very solid company. But also we have the very intriguing, iron plus steel. Now, this doesn't feel good that we have two companies that have iron and steel, because we will not benefit from the construction bonus if we slot in both. If we use generic steel, we won't benefit from the construction there. That all kind of feels a little bit rough, but 10% infrastructure is a very, very good modifier. I think it's better than 10% railway building throughput, and so this is very, very intriguing, and maybe in a world where specialization becomes a little bit stronger, this company is really good. And also, this company, let's see, it does not require any tech either, and so in the very early game, when you're cranking up the iron mines, in particular, and you really, really care about, or sorry, not the iron mines, the iron frame buildings, and iron is really what you're building, and you want to be building a lot of it, maybe this company is actually just insane, just pairing the two of these together, and is something, worth highly considering, and is going to be a very early game kind of thing. But Spain almost made the top 5, but we have them kind of at 6th, with a heavy asterisk next to the next company. And that company is Sweden's Ericsson. Now, we'll come back to that, but Iklab is also an intriguing company. I don't think it's overall that strong, but it is going to give you an absolute ton of throughput on iron mines. You're already going to have throughput from your state bonuses, though, and so it's going to be effectively less worthwhile, but this is an interesting one for the same reason that stacking iron mines is probably good on Spain in the early game, because you really care about iron in particular. But coming back to Ericsson, I used to think that this 5% wealth access, education access, was a multiplicative modifier, and if you had wealth education access, it would give 5% of that, increased. It would multiply. This is an additive modifier with wealth education access. We start in Sweden with a level 3 institution of, this, which is giving us, if we were to be on wealth education access, if we were to be on private schools, would give us 1.5%. So if we were on level 5, we would have 2.5%, which makes this company, the prosperity bonus, the equivalent of 10 levels of wealth education access. This is so blatantly overtuned. I did not want to include it in the bonus because it's just impossible to evaluate. This is going to give you the equivalent of, for an SOL of 10, which is basically our average, it's going to give you 50% literacy off of it. So it's going to be extraordinarily easy to hit 100% literacy with this company. It's going to be absurdly easy. You could do it as anyone, which is going to allow you to direct research really, really fast fast because this is going to increase your innovation cap to basically the max. And so this company is just very absurd. Also, you don't have to invest in as much institutions. You get to stay on child labor. Shout out to the children in the mines. They yearn for them. You probably don't go compulsory like primary school if you have this. And so it's just a very strange company that I think is like almost bugged. Like the numbers just so out of touch that I don't think it stays. And so this video won't stand the test of time if I have this at number 1. So it's just going to go in the honorable mentions, and I will just be bemused as I look at something that gives 10 levels of an institution. And finally, in first place, we have Belgium. Now, Belgium has some absurd companies. Notably, one of these companies is going to be culture locked, but you can accept this culture if you either form the HRE or you do France's journal entry that kind of assimilates this Belgium culture. And that company is Compagnie du Congo, which is going to be the best in slot wood/rubber company, most likely. This company is insane. It's going to be giving us iron, wood, and rubber. The throughput on all of these is extremely good. The construction's good. It's going to be very good. The one problem with it is you can't slot it in until pretty late because it requires having level 10 rubber plantation. So this means, you won't be able to slot it in early. Iron and wood early would just be absolutely insane, very strong. But you're going to rush rubber more now in patch 1.5 because the tooling PM is just obscene. And so because you're rushing this early, you're actually going to get it a little bit earlier than you might anticipate, or your ability to use this company. But this is, BIS, or it's the best in slot, probably iron, wood, and rubber company. It's just a very, very strong company, and it's culture locked for Belgium. Next up, we have, let's talk about Société Franco-Belge, which is going to require Wallonia Flanders. This one requires Congo, interestingly. But this company is going to be, I think, the best railway company that doesn't have a resource tied to it. It's going to be a very strong railway company anyways, though, because it's giving 5%, infrastructure on top of it. So just a railway company with 5% infrastructure would be really good, but we're also going to get throughput and construction on motor industries. We'll come back to John Cockrell because the construction's not going to be that important, but this is a very solid company. It's probably worth using. Of the three, it's going to be the weakest one, but it's like very solid, and you probably end up using all three of these. But this company is very, very good. There's not too much to say about it that we haven't already said about, railways and infrastructure. These are going to be very strong. And then finally, we have the John Cockrell company, which is the best tooling workshop company in the game, in my opinion, because unlike a Mavag from Austria or Kupus from Greece, this company also gives the steel throughput. And so it's going to be, tools, engines, and steel, and give the 10% railway building throughput, which in my mind makes this the best tooling workshop company in the game. And so the fact that they're having the best tooling workshop company in the game, and then, it was also going to have steel tied to it. You could use generic steel too, and then it's going to have all the inputs that eventually lead into tools. It just looks very, very strong on Belgium. Extraordinarily strong. You're going to use probably all three of these companies. One of them is culture locked. Really, really, I can't emphasize enough how, I think that if you exclude Sweden's nonsense, Belgium just looks absolutely insane. USA is pretty good if you use the infamy company in some sort of weird hyper late game scenario, but I think that this Compagnie du Congo is really, really where it's at, and it's culture locked. It is the strongest culture locked company in the game, even though the Manchuria Railway Company is extremely strong as well, and so yeah, it's Belgium. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Just very briefly, we'll kind of just say what the top 5 were. In 5th place, we had Russia, mainly on the back of their iron steel coal company. In 4th place, we had Bolivia, off the back of their railway plus sulfur company, and also the interesting electric works company, or the power plants company that gives construction, which might be better than I'm rating it. USA has the very interesting, let's just swap back to the USA. because USA is it's got several that are going to be good, but the three that are the kind of the standout ones are the second best, coal, iron, steel. Also, United Fruit Company, which is probably not worth using if you're doing low infamy, but is really good if you're doing high infamy, particularly in the late game. And Standard Oil, which might be the best, railway company in the game. It might not be. In second place, we had Japan, which is kind of competing with Standard Oil in terms of which is the best, kind of railway company in the game. And they have the South Manchuria Railway Company, which is notably culture locked. The good USA companies, if you're not playing high infamy, are not culture locked, and so this was giving them some bonus points. And they also have probably the best in slot lead company. We had a whole bunch of honorable mentions, and then we finally had Belgium, which has the best companies overall in the game. We already said do the YouTube algo stuff, so with that, I bid you have a good day.